picture this. All right. You're in New York City. It's 1912. You're stepping into a sold-out Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
But here's the thing. Instead of the usual crowd, it's filled with a mix of black and white New Yorkers,
Yeah.
all there to hear an orchestra
What?
made up entirely of black musicians.
Hmm.
Pretty incredible, right?
Yeah, what's fascinating about this is that it wasn't just, some novelty act or anything like that. This was the KFT Club Orchestra, led by the really incredible James Reese Europe,
Oh, yeah.
pushing boundaries, challenging perceptions of black music in a time of deep racial segregation in the U.S.
Yeah, it really sets the stage, doesn't it, for the incredible journey that we're about to embark on. We sort of dive deep into the story of the Harlem Hellfighters,
Yeah.
an all-black regiment that served with such distinction in World War I, facing prejudice both at home and abroad.
I mean, this Carnegie Hall concert, it was more than just a musical triumph. It was a powerful statement.
Yeah.
It raised funds for a music school for black students, showcased black talent on a national stage. I mean, can you imagine the impact on the audience?
Yeah.
Seeing these talented musicians command the stage at Carnegie Hall, it challenged the prevailing racist notions that black music was inferior or only fit for certain venues.
Yeah, and this James Reese Europe, his story is really woven into the fabric of the Hellfighters, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, he wasn't just a talented musician, he was a leader. He went on to become a lieutenant in the 15th New York, the regiment that would, of course, become the Harlem Hellfighters. And his music, it played a crucial role in recruiting soldiers and boosting morale.
So you're telling me that even before the war, these men were already breaking barriers.
Yes, and it's important to understand the context here. We're talking about the era of Jim Crow laws. And these laws weren't just about, separate water fountains and train cars. They enforced this racial segregation in every aspect of life, from schools and transportation to restaurants, even cemeteries. And a lot of black Americans were hesitant to fight for a country that treated them as second-class citizens.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally understandable. Why risk your life for a country that denies you basic rights?
Exactly. But figures like W.E.B. Du Bois, a prominent black intellectual and activist, argued for black participation in the war effort. He saw it as, a pathway to equality,
Yeah.
a way to prove their loyalty and earn their rightful place in American society.
So there was this internal debate then within the black community about whether to fight or not.
Oh, absolutely. It was a complex and emotionally charged issue.
Hmm.
Some believed that serving in the military would help advance the cause of civil rights, while others saw it as supporting a system that oppressed them. But in the end, 15th New York, they did attract recruits, thanks in part to figures like Du Bois, the leadership of Colonel William Hayward, and of course the inspiring music of James Reese Europe.
Even before setting foot on a battlefield, it sounds like they were already facing an uphill battle.
You're absolutely right about that. Even during training, the 15th faced this hostility and racism. They were deployed to Camp Wadsworth in South Carolina, a state deeply, deeply entrenched in Jim Crow. And remember, this was shortly after the Camp Logan mutiny in Houston, where black soldiers had clashed with white authorities. Tensions were, they were incredibly high.
Yeah, it must have been incredibly challenging for them to maintain their composure and discipline in such a hostile environment.
It was a powder keg. But the 15th, through their discipline and strong leadership, they managed to avoid any major incidents during their time in the South. They proved their resilience and determination even before facing the enemy.
It's almost like they were fighting two wars simultaneously, one against prejudice at home and another against the enemy abroad.
That's a very insightful observation. And sadly, this duality continued even when they reached Europe.
Right.
When the 369th, as they were now designated, arrived in France, they were initially relegated to labor duties. The U.S. military was still deeply segregated,
Wow.
a stark reminder of the racism they were trying to escape.
So even in a foreign country, fighting alongside their fellow Americans, they couldn't escape discrimination. It's heartbreaking.
It is. But here's where a twist in the story comes in. General Pershing, the commander of the American Expeditionary Forces, he ultimately offered the 369th to the French army.
Why would he do that? I mean, wasn't he giving away valuable troops?
It's a complex situation. The French were desperate for manpower and less concerned with segregation. For them, a soldier was a soldier, regardless of color. They saw the potential in these men that their own country failed to recognize.
So for the 369th, this decision was a bit of a double-edged sword, wasn't it?
Exactly. On one hand, it allowed them to fight, which they desperately wanted to do. But on the other hand, they were fighting under a foreign flag, separated from their American identity.
Right.
It raises this profound question about the meaning of patriotism and sacrifice when your own country doesn't fully embrace you.
What happened to James Reese Europe? Was he still leading the band at this point?
Yes. In fact, his regimental band was winning hearts and minds all over France.
Oh, wow.
They introduced the French to ragtime and jazz, and their music proved to be this incredibly powerful cultural ambassador. It's quite ironic, isn't it? While the soldiers of the 369th were facing discrimination in the U.S. Army, their music, this uniquely Black American art form, was being celebrated in France.
It's like they were battling prejudice with the power of music.
You could say that. And their music resonated so deeply with the French, who embraced them in a way that their own country really hadn't.
This is already such a captivating story, and when we haven't even gotten to their experiences on the front lines.
Oh, but we're getting there. And trust me, their time in the trenches is just as remarkable as everything that came before. Are you ready to hear about the legendary heroism of Henry Johnson?
Absolutely, I'm all ears.
So Henry Johnson, he was a small man, but incredibly brave.
Oh, wow. Sounds like a real-life David and Goliath story, huh?
You could say that. He became a legend after single-handedly fending off this German raiding party, despite being wounded pretty badly. It was a dark night, and he was on guard duty with another soldier, Needham Roberts, when they were suddenly attacked by at least 12 Germans.
Oh, wow. So they were completely outnumbered then.
Severely. They were trapped in their trench with their corporal and other men. They were in a nearby dugout, but it was quickly sealed off by grenade explosions. Both Johnson and Roberts were wounded in the initial attack. Roberts was so badly hurt he couldn't move, but he bravely kept throwing grenades just to keep the enemy at bay.
Wow. Talk about courage under fire.
Yeah.
What did Johnson do?
He fought like a man possessed. He fired his rifle, but it only held 3 rounds, so he quickly ran out of ammunition. And then a German soldier jumped into the trench, and Johnson, without hesitation, swung his rifle like a club, smashing the butt into the attacker's head.
So he was out of ammo and fighting hand to hand. I mean, this is where it gets really intense.
He was just getting started. Another German tried to drag Roberts away as a prisoner, but Johnson pulled out his bolo knife. It's a massive 9-inch blade, and leaped onto the man's back, stabbing him right in the skull.
I mean, that's some pretty incredible close combat.
The Germans, despite outnumbering the Americans, were just completely taken aback by Johnson's ferocity. He was shot twice more, once in the shoulder and once in the thigh, but he just kept fighting. He even managed to bayonet another German soldier in the stomach with such force, I mean, that the man's feet left the ground.
He sounds like a superhero, straight out of a comic book.
It's truly an incredible story of courage and determination. The Germans eventually retreated, leaving Johnson and Roberts, badly wounded but alive. The French were astonished by their bravery, and they awarded both men the Croix de Guerre, one of their highest military honors.
Wow. So why is this one battle so significant? What makes it stand out?
Well, this event, which, came to be known as the Battle of Henry Johnson, it had a ripple effect that was felt far beyond the battlefield. I mean, it made headlines back in the United States, turning Johnson into a national hero and solidifying the 369th's reputation for just, fearlessness. This is where they earned the nickname Harlem Hellfighters, a title bestowed upon them by the Germans, who had witnessed their tenacity firsthand.
Yeah, it's a testament to their fighting spirit. It must have given a huge morale boost, not just to the regiment, but to Black Americans back home.
Absolutely. It challenged prevailing racist stereotypes that portrayed Black soldiers as cowardly or unfit for combat.
Right.
The Hellfighters, they proved their valor on the battlefield time and time again. In fact, they spent a remarkable 191 days on the front lines, longer than any other American unit. They never lost ground, and they were the first Allied regiment to reach the Rhine River.
191 days straight. That's almost unheard of.
They were true warriors. Their sacrifices were significant. Many were killed or wounded, but their legacy is one of just unwavering courage and resilience. For their valor, the entire regiment received the Croix de Guerre, a testament to their collective bravery.
Wow. So after facing this racism at home and proving themselves in battle, how were they received when they returned to the United States?
Well, they received a hero's welcome. The 369th, They paraded through the streets of New York. I mean, just massive crowds, hailed as conquering heroes. It was a moment of national pride and unity. But, and this is the heartbreaking part, this moment was fleeting.
Oh, so even after all they had done for their country, they still faced discrimination.
Sadly, yes. I mean, Jim Crow laws were still in place. They were celebrated for their service, but they weren't treated as equals in their own country. The post-war years were difficult for many Hellfighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, but it's the truth. I
Yeah.
mean, the story of Leroy Johnston, it really highlights this harsh reality of that time. He was a bugler in the 369th, a veteran who had, survived some of the war's most brutal battles,
Right.
but tragically, he was killed in this racially motivated attack right here in the U.S.
Oh, wow. What happened to him?
Well, in 1919, Johnston and his three brothers were traveling by train in Arkansas, and they were falsely accused of being involved in this sharecroppers union that was organizing for better rights, and they were arrested, taken off the train, and shot dead by a mob.
Oh my gosh, it's a chilling reminder that for Black Americans, even those who had, served with honor, there was no escaping the deep-seated racism that permeated society.
This incident, along with countless others, fueled this growing anger and frustration within the Black community. I mean, they had fought for democracy abroad, only to return home to a country that still denied them these basic rights.
Yeah. So the war may have ended in Europe, but the battle for equality was far from over in the United States.
Exactly. The Harlem Hellfighters story is a testament to their, extraordinary bravery, but it's also a stark reminder of this long and arduous fight for racial justice in America.
Yeah, their legacy is so complex, isn't it? I mean, they were heroes,
Yeah.
symbols of Black excellence and
Right.
patriotism. Yet their story exposes this deep-seated racism that has plagued our nation for centuries.
It's a story that forces us to confront, these uncomfortable truths about our past and acknowledge the systemic racism that has shaped our nation. It's a reminder that the fight for equality is this ongoing struggle, one that requires constant vigilance and a commitment to justice.
Absolutely. So what can we learn from the Harlem Hellfighters today? I mean, what message should we take away from their story?
I think their story reminds us that true patriotism is about more than just waving a flag. It's about fighting for the ideals that our nation represents, even when those ideals haven't been fully realized for all citizens. The Harlem Hellfighters, they embody that spirit of courage, sacrifice, and this relentless pursuit of justice.
Yeah, they really challenge us to confront the injustices of our past and work towards a future where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. Their story should inspire us all to continue this fight for a more just and equitable society.
And if this deep dive has left you wanting to learn more, I encourage you to seek out more information about the Harlem Hellfighters.
Yeah.
There are books, documentaries, and even museums dedicated to their story. Their legacy deserves to be remembered and honored.
Absolutely. And remember, if you want to explore more fascinating topics and uncover these hidden histories, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on future deep dives.